Hi class, welcome back. Now we are going to talk about ethical standards and procedures in psychological assessment part 2. So we already have discussed the part 1 of the ethical standards and procedures. I do suggest that you just watch that first before proceeding to this one. Again, just a disclaimer, these ethical standards come from the Psychological Association of the Philippines. Now let's continue. So once you already administered the test to your participants, it's now time to release of the test data. Now that's letter F, release of test data. Number 1, it is our responsibility to ensure that test results and interpretations are not used by persons other than those explicitly agreed upon by the referral sources prior to the assessment procedure. So we do not disclose the results of our tests other than the people who we agreed upon. So to make sure in here is that we check the informed consent that we created prior to administering the test. So we can see who can we release the test data. Number 2, we do not release test data in the forms of raw and scaled scores. Clients' responses to test questions or stimuli, and notes regarding the client's statements and behaviors during the examination unless regulated by the court. So in here, number 2 clearly stated that we should have the interpretation of the test already before releasing it to the clients. Test results should not be in the form of a raw score or scaled scores. All of the raw scores and scaled scores should be kept with us, unless it is asked or regulated by the court. But again, we should only release the interpreted scores, and you can find that to the test manual. Letter G, explaining assessment results. Number 1, we release test results only to the sources of referral and with a written permission from the client if it is a self-referral. So in here, we should only explain the assessment results if the client or depending on the client. And also, the client should have a permission on this. Again, you can all find this at the informed consent. Number 2, where test results have to be communicated to relatives, parents, or teachers, we explain them through a non-technical language, meaning all the language that we are going to use just to explain the results to our clients should not include psychological assessment jargon words, like according to the factor analysis or the factor on this one or the validity and many more. We should just explain them into non-technical words or language to the client that is understandable. This is to avoid other consequences or misunderstanding. Number 3, we explain findings and test results to our clients or designated representatives except when the relationship precludes the provision of explanation of results and it is explained in advance to the client. So in here, we only explain our findings and test results to the clients or to their representatives. Okay, and that is except when the relationship precludes the provision of explanation of results and is explained in advance to the client. So meaning in here, it depends on the client who we are going to explain the test results. Okay, because again, like what I've mentioned in the previous video, our clients also depends because sometimes our clients uh, um, are already informed that they will receive the results, or are already informed that they will not receive the results but will be forwarded to the organization who needs it. So in here, we should only explain the findings and test results to the designated person. Again, this can also only be seen in the informed consent. Number 4. When a test results needs to be shared with schools, social agencies, the court, or industry, we supervise such releases. So in here, we have to make sure that confidentiality through through transition or moving or sharing of the test results is completely supervised and kept confidential. We, as practitioners, should supervise the the movement of the test results. Letter H. Test security. The administration and handling of all test materials, manuals, keys, answer sheets, reusable booklets, and etc. shall be handled but only by qualified users or personnel. So, if the psychometrician or the psychologist will administer the test, a specific test only, he or she is the only person allowed to administer and handle and keep that test. That includes all the manuals, the keys, the answer sheets, the booklets, and many more. This includes those that are user ready or about to be used. Letter I. Assessment by unqualified persons. Number 1. We do not promote the uses of assessment tools and methods by unqualified persons, except for training purposes with adequate supervision. So in here, if you are not yet qualified, for example, yes, you are a student and you are not yet qualified to administer the test, there should be a supervision in administering the test. Like, for example, a registered psychometrician or a registered psychologist. And this is for training purposes only. The unqualified person should be, the unqualified person will administer the test, but for training purposes only or for educational purposes only. And this should be supervised by the registered psychometrician or registered psychologist. Number 2. We ensure that test protocols, their interpretations, and all other records are kept secured from unqualified persons. So in here, like what I've mentioned, only the registered psychometrician or psychologists are allowed to keep the test materials. And if an unqualified person uses it, the supervising registered psychometrician or psychologist are the one responsible to secure all the materials used in administering the test. Letter J. Test construction. We develop tests and other assessment tools using current scientific findings and knowledge, appropriate psychometric properties, validation, and standardization procedures. So this is often discussed on this process is often discussed in the psychological assessment subject. So in here, you are going to be taught about the standardization, norming, validity, and reliability. So in here, a person who will construct a test should undergo this process, and it should be scientific and backed with research. No person who will construct a psychological test should not go through that process. Everyone should go through that process, and it's better if they are supervised or they are a licensed or a registered psychometrician or a registered psychologist. So that's it for the psychological assessment, ethical standards and procedures. Again, that this is from the Psychological Association of the Philippines and from the Scientific and Professional Ethics Committee 2008 to 2009. If you have any questions, I do suggest that you let me know at the chat box or FB Messenger chat group we have. So that's it. Thank you for watching. See you then. Bye.